Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 11th Water Committee meeting. And I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are meeting today on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. And I don't believe we have anybody online, but we may have alternate Director Monroe join us from for Area A in Director Arbor's absence, but don't see him yet. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is the resolution status report. Okay, moved and seconded. And any discussion or questions? Seeing none. Anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. And the next item is the Management Advisory Committee minutes. Is there a seconder? Oh, sorry, thank you. And any discussion or we've got some entertainment by Director Grieve, but we'll bypass that. I think that was his latest band practice, perhaps. I'm not. Yeah, I see. I know him all too well. We'll save the shenanigans for maybe later. Okay, any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none. Anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried. Okay, so here's our exciting item on the agenda, our Connected by Water update, and I'll turn it over to, okay, moved and seconded for receipt, and I'll turn it over to staff. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to the committee members. Chris LaRose, our Senior Manager of Water Wastewater Services, will be introducing this report and then presentation from some of our partners in the community. So Chris, over to you.
Thank you, James, and through the chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So one of the key action items in the Watershed Protection Plan that was brought forward in 2016 was to develop a robust public education campaign to educate the community about the importance of valuing and protecting our drinking watershed. For 5 years now, the Connected by Water team has been working towards this objective with innovative projects and initiatives that have reached many of our community members. So the Connected by Water team is made up of public communication and outreach, led by Megan Corsons, and K-12 curriculum development, led by Tina Willers-Deppen. So last year, the CVRD led an update to the Watershed Risk Assessment, which forms the backbone of the Watershed Protection Plan, and the Connected by Water team has incorporated additional focus on emerging risks in their educational materials. So Megan and Tina are here with us today to provide an overview of the Connected by Water 2024 work plan. And then we'll be available to answer questions after. So over to you, Megan and Tina.
Are we on? Yes, we are. Thank you kindly. My name is Megan Corsons. This is Tina Willard-Steppen. And so we're going to give you an overview of the program, which also means an overview of what's already well underway because we're in June. So we have some great updates for you. So everything that we do as a project really responds to the question, what is it that we need to have safe, sustainable drinking water and a resilient watershed to provide for our community now and into the future? And everything builds off of that fundamental inquiry, whether we're working with little kids or we're working with the public or we're working in art or sports spaces, that's the foundational question.
So I'll start out talking about our school programs. As Chris mentioned, we have developed curriculum that's in wide use in School District 71. Teachers use the inquiry units to talk about watershed protection with their classes. This is an image of students on a floating classroom with Lake Park Society, an example of one of the things that we do. We support Lake Park Society with their curriculum, as well as we are guest presenters on the boats or on land when they invite us to do that. We have talked to, we've had 578 touch points this year with students in the classroom or on the water so far, and we have more planned for the fall. We also do water treatment tours where we bring students grades 6 to 12 into the facility. First, we do a hike through the Bevan Trails, talk about the history of the watershed. We talk about water protection, water conservation, and they learn about the larger context. And then they get to come and do a tour with Mike and his staff through the facility to learn about water treatment. This is an image of students on the shore of the Puntledge River during that hike, where we asked them to make a commitment to how to be in good relationship with water. So we've had super positive feedback from students and staff alike with the school district. This is a letter from a student. I'm so glad that we have such a great watershed. I had no idea how important this is to the Comox Valley and overall nature. I promise to take care of the Comox Lake and help it to stay clean and healthy. So these are the kinds of things we ask students, or students sort of arrive to at the end of our presentations, that, oh, this lake is really important and we're going to make a commitment as to how to be in good relationship with it.
We've also had a great relationship with the North Island College Tourism Management and Adventure Guiding Program. And this is a really exciting program when we're out there with students, because it's a really neat mix of local students as well as international. And we really ground this conversation in everyone sharing with us what they know about where their own drinking water comes from. And it's been just so lovely to sit at the lake and hear from people all over the world and having them share their experiences around scarcity, around understanding where water comes from, and then really connecting to local history. So we've been doing this for multiple years and hope to continue with our friends up at North Island College. We were also late last year completed an instructional video called the Comox Lake Watershed, a guide for beginners. You can find that on the CVRD website. It's also been running on rotation recently in downtown Courtenay at the Comox Valley Art Gallery as part of their Return to Water exhibition. So we can send that link out too. It's a great 101 about the watershed. And then we are in there at different times for different reasons with interim signage. And this is actually a photo of a sign that's on display when the Perseverance Streamkeepers were at work in Lower Perseverance Creek, which explains some of the local landscape, acceptable behaviors and conservation planning that is that's underway in that space.
Okay, we had a really wonderful time with an event we called Watershed Awareness Days this spring, and did several, well, I'll show you what we did. We took public on multiple tours of the water treatment facility. So they signed up online and were able to come through and have a talk with staff, ask as many questions as they wanted to. We had excellent feedback from that, and it was actually quite well subscribed. I think most of our time slots were full, and it emulated what we do with students, but just in the water treatment facility. People are very grateful to have access to this facility via these tours. I think they get requests by phone all the time, and it's really nice that we're able to offer it during events like this.
For this event, we were also able to connect with residents of the Valley and go into other spaces that people don't necessarily visit regularly, and maybe not through a stewardship lens. And one is the BC Parks Ecological Reserve at Comox Lake, which is sadly the focus of a lot of maybe not the most desired behavior. It's generations upon generations of grad parties on that side of the lake. And so really good to be in there with the BC Parks warden from CV Nature to see the really beautiful education work they're doing and make people aware of the ecological values of this beautiful treasure that we have in our watershed that is very worthy of care and stewardship, and to help to share that with the broader community as we look out over Comox Lake and really connect with the importance of this natural ecological asset.
What was our next event?
This is the lake and the signage.
Okay, so we did also attend, we've done a couple of static signs, which we don't normally do when they're, we do place-based education as much as we can. And so Fish and Game had a family day picnic recently, and I made sure that we were there with some children's activities, a puzzle that children can put together to understand the water cycle and its relationship to water treatment. This sign is actually a new sign that we've created. One is hung at Lake Park Society, where we also had an evening of water safety demonstrations and people able to come and ask us questions about the watershed during Watershed Awareness Days. And so this sign has gone up at Lake Park Society. We're going to be hanging one up at Fish and Game, and we're working to get that circulated in as many spots as possible.
An exciting part of this event this year was to partner actively with a program called Return to Water at the Comox Valley Art Gallery. So we were able to weave public education into their events. It was built around an exhibition by Indigenous artist Sunny Asu. And we were also able to have school groups in the art gallery using the art gallery as the space to do water cycle and watershed education. And then we did an evening public event also in the gallery, which is a version of something Tina will be speaking to, which is our Source Encounters tour, which is a history of the watershed and also current political context. And we did it instead with, it was a photo journey. So this is me being very excited about the watershed, as I am. Oh, I guess I'm doing this one quickly. The other site-based tour we've done 2 at Fish and Game this year. We actually did a wonderful presentation with a full Rotary group last week who were doing an amazing race all through the valley. And so we had 30+ Rotarians down learning about the history of the watershed, ecological issues, climate change, all kinds of great stuff. It was a really cool group. And then we also did a tour in partnership with the Fish and Game Club where we got to have a look at where the lake intake is. And Mike took us on a great tour through there. So we learned about restoration projects at Fish and Game, but we also got to see directly how the water is drawn from Comox Lake and makes its way to the water treatment plant and the connection between the regional district and the Fish and Game Club.
We had a couple of Source Encounters tour as a part of Watershed Awareness Days as well. This is it's a meeting of sorts that we invite community leadership, community leaders that may be artists, maybe politicians, maybe management, who can influence others. And we bring them out on these double Voyager canoes provided by Lake Park Society. They have skippers. We pay them a fee, and Megan and I guide them on a tour of the history of the watershed. We talk about having a climate resilient watershed. We talk about climate hope and optimism. We bring in Indigenous ways of knowing and how to be in good relationship with water. These have been very well received. We have so far run 3, and we have one more in the fall. We'll have brought about 200 community members through that. Plus, we've done it with a high school class, which went very well. It was a lot of fun. We'll be doing it. Who else are we doing it with?
We're doing another one in September, and we're doing it with the teacher program.
Right, we do. We also, thank you. We also do it for teachers so that they're bringing that content into the classroom. And these are some great photos just of how we talk about the history, how we're at the front of the boats presenting and speaking. And yeah, it's quite a special experience on people who've done it. I think we got a lot of emails this week about people talking about bringing that conversation forward into their own work environments as a result of having the experience. And we talk about this sort of work as legacy work. All of the work actually we do is legacy work, planting seeds so that other people are bringing the information forward.
We'll wrap up quickly here, but as you can see, we're excited. We also have been participating in the some of the tourism planning and the regional planning that's underway around tourism, specific to ensuring that external facing messaging around access to lake, around boating, around anything to do with freshwater recreation is tied directly to people understanding the importance of this for drinking water. It's different than in the context of other places. So we've had a real opportunity to influence some of the messaging coming out of that process. And that, of course, ties over into emerging risk, which through the Watershed Protection Plan update has become very clear, which is fire in our watershed. So going forward into the summer, we're going to be engaged in photo point monitoring for fire pits and public communication and education at the Coal Beach site at Comox Lake. Engagement, having conversations with people to better understand where they are and what the risks of certain behaviors and activities are there. And we're right now, like literally this morning, working with local fire protection, wildfire branch, emergency management to clearly define with all those appropriate partners, the messaging going out to the community related to fires in Comox Lake, which is one of the big risks, especially with so many different property owners around the lake. It's sometimes difficult to, it's not difficult, it's just a wonderful challenge to get a cohesive, coherent message around what the appropriate behavior at the lake is or not, because a fire at Comox Lake would be a significant impact on the Comox Lake watershed. And when we look at the fire at Cameron Bluffs last year and see what happened to the landscape afterwards once rains came, we can see really clearly where those risks could come into play to water quality. And finally,
hope. We bring this, you can see we get really excited about watershed. So I think it becomes a bit contagious and we speak to people about moving forward with hope and action. So figuring out where they can support projects, raise awareness about watershed. That's the legacy piece. We've spoken about what we've done all this spring. Coming up, we'll be doing the monitoring over the summer. We'll be continuing with school groups in the fall. I don't think we've made up everything we're doing in the fall yet, but a thing that we're really excited about is we're supporting a youth climate conference that will be happening in partnership with School District 71. It will have a watershed focus. Some of you folks may get drawn in the fall. So we're really excited to create some collaborations and bring School District 71 youth together to have them bring forward the legacy conversation about watershed too.
Great. And if you have any questions, and thank you for your time. We love talking about what we do. We get pretty excited about it. So you can ask us questions anytime. And we believe that every single one of you at this point has received invitation to join us on a Source Encounters trip. If that email ended up in your spam or you didn't see it, please nudge us at any point, because we do have a date coming up in September and we would love to finish taking you all on that journey.
And if you're unsure, just ask your colleagues who have attended and then you'll be convinced to come. There's our sales pitch for Source Encounters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your passion is always infectious. I think we're going over to Mayor Wells for the first comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As the alternate director, I appreciate it. And I just want to say, having been on this tour again, to kind of echo your enthusiasm as much as I can, it was a great event, and I think really insightful for all those who went on it, and not just about the watershed, but even the historical context, because there is that part that I think you guys did a really good job of articulating, kind of how we got here, like not just like in the last 100 years or 200 years, but really grounding that in a great context. And then secondly, just really, I was going to put my thing on to talk about the thing, but then you mentioned it. But I have to say, and kudos to Director Cole Hamilton as well, who was part of that back in 2020, just a couple of days before the pandemic hit. And at that event, I was given a little wooden medallion with Mayor Bob put on it, which when I wear to conferences like I did last week, and I explain how I got it. Again, I think it's something that leaders from across the country are really leaning into right now. Again, with all the disaster stuff that's happening with climate change, it's just a natural way. But by doing it in such a positive way and with their youth, just huge kudos. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Director Grieve.
I'll be brief, but I just want to say that you talk about infectious energy here. I think I've very seldom seen that at this table, to the point I think we probably raised the vibration for the rest of the day's proceedings. But no, good work. But it does bring to mind the same kind of education is probably really important in regards to where your food comes from. And unfortunately, we don't have a agricultural service. We can't fund this kind of program with ST71 or whatever. But I look forward to the day when we can actually do that, and also bring the general population, especially the teachers and the kids, in contact with what food is and where it comes from. So that's just a little plug.
That's great. I don't see any other lights on. I just wanted to make the comment. I was really happy to hear about the connection with the tourism piece. We were talking at the presentation we had recently around folks' reasons for traveling to a certain location, and that more people are choosing locations connected to their values, and obviously people who are concerned about the environment. So I think bringing in that watershed piece is really important, and hopefully that will expand and filter out a lot more, so that people are understanding that when they come into our community. I mean, you often, we see heritage sites throughout the world that are always protected, and really this is no different than something like that, having that protection there. Okay, that's initiated a comment or question from Director Kerr. Go ahead.
Thanks, and thanks so much for the presentation, Tina and Megan. A quick question about connected by water and and your relationship with the privately managed forest lands. And the increased logging that we've seen, clear cutting happening in the watershed. You can't drive up Mount Washington and not be shocked to see it. What is your program? How does your program address that? And have there been any conversations with the owners of those lands? Thanks.
Well, we're at the table when we're talking about education. We're at the table with Mosaic and Manulife at the Watershed Advisory Group. So we're in relationship with each other. We spend a lot of time providing the historical context for folks to understand the land ownership regime that's in play, and then who has authority over decision making in those different areas. And so I think our approach is to empower people with the information to understand where jurisdiction lies and the history of where jurisdiction lies. And then from there, people can choose to be agents in the community and in their own lives towards the actions they want to see happen. So we really, I think our foundation is helping people to understand the complexity of jurisdiction and which way to turn if they have further questions about that kind of stuff.
Okay, I don't see any more lights on, so thank you so much for the presentation and for all the great work, and we'll see you next update. Okay, our next, now do we need to vote on that? So anyone opposed to receipt of the presentation? Don't see anybody. That's carried. Thank you. The next item is the integrated energy audit results for the Comox Valley Water Treatment Plant. And okay, Grieve and Grant, and we'll turn it over to staff to present that.
Thanks again, and Chris LaRose will be presenting this report on the audit and path forward. Chris.
Thank you, James, through the chair. So this report presents a summary of the attached energy audit that was performed for the Comox Valley Water Treatment Plant with 50% funding from BC Hydro. And this was completed over the winter and into early spring. So the audit identified and measured sources of greenhouse gas emissions from our operations and identified a number of energy conservation measures, or ECMs as they're referred to throughout, that could be pursued to reduce departmental emissions and towards compliance with the corporate energy and emissions plan. So a number of ECM were assessed and prioritized based on a scale of the emissions avoided, the cost of achieving the reductions, and several other metrics. Most of the ECMs that were identified through the audit will be actioned internally by our staff. But 2 ECM are recommended for more detailed feasibility studies. The first one being installation of solar panels on the clear well at the water treatment plant. And the second being HVAC recommissioning and optimization. So there may be ways to squeeze out further energy conservation from those relatively new systems. So should the committee support the staff recommendations, we'll be moving forward with an application to BC Hydro to fund approximately 50% of the cost of the feasibility studies. And we're hopeful of having that funding received and the work being done in time to allow us to bring the results back and potentially embed any actions within the 2025 to 2029 financial plan. So in parallel with the feasibility study, if supported today, staff will also be exploring how best to compare emission reduction projects between departments and whether and how to focus resources on the highest priority projects to minimize or to maximize the efficiency of SEEP implementation across the corporation. That's all for me, but happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Chris. And do we have any questions or comments? Director Grieve.
Thanks very much. I'm very curious on how BC Hydro dovetails into this because a number of years ago at UBCM, I don't think anybody around the table was with me on that meeting. I think Arzina and Christiane were there. But we asked some questions about BC Hydro, and one of the things was why have they taken a stance now to lower what they pay for domestic generation that's sold back to the grid? I think at one time it was between 9 and 11 cents a kilowatt hour. And then they reduced it, I think, to 3 or 4%. And the answer I got back was, well, we produce the cheapest, cleanest hydroelectricity in all North America, and we don't see any reason to subsidize, our grid. That person is since not with them anymore, and they seem to have a change of heart at ABICC. They were singing a little bit of a different tune. So I'm just wondering if we do put in this solar panel array, how many kilowatts would it generate, and are we selling excess back to the grid, or is it just for our own operations?
Sure, yeah, there are a couple concepts that will be explored if we proceed with the feasibility study. One would be working within the limit for a net metering type of situation, which is roughly 100 kilowatts. And the other one would be obtaining a distributed generation status for the CVRD, which would allow us to generate significantly more. So we do have a lot of surface area up there that panels could be installed on. So, but that one, there's a fair bit of bureaucracy and approvals required to get there. It would allow for a significantly bigger project with potentially a better payback. But yeah, so at least those two concepts will be explored. So the limit of 100 kilowatts or something potentially bigger.
So the question though would be, where would be the break-even point? What point do we, is it a net zero wash with what we pay for the photovoltaic system, and when it breaks even according to what we would be buying from hydro? Is there like a 5-10 year horizon on that, or?
It's more like a 10-15 year payback, but that's without any grant funding at all received, and there is a strong prospect of receiving some funding to help to get it installed. And I forgot to mention, we'll also be looking at the use of battery storage at that site. So in answer to your question earlier, it would be a net metering type of a situation, but there's also the prospect of installing battery storage at the facility, which we could potentially use to generate more on site. Also would have significant operational benefits, reducing the number of effective power outages. Those batteries could act like a plant-wide backup power system. Yeah, so it's quite exciting, but the feasibility study will kind of walk through all of that and allow us to make a decision in the fall.
Well, we better move quickly before a certain world leader doubles the price of anything made in China.
Okay, Director Cole Hamilton.
Thanks very much, Sharon. Thanks for the report, Chris. And having been at the previous meeting where we reviewed a similar application to BC Hydro, I think it's gonna be interesting to see the sort of bang for a buck, so to speak, that we get in each service for the dollars that we're putting into it. And that sort of raises an interesting larger question of whether we want to be examining that corporate wide to make sure that rather than compartmentalizing and requiring everyone to achieve the same reduction, there may be a low hanging fruit to be had in a particular area. And we may want to be concentrating our resources in one area versus or another versus going service by service. So I think these two reports are going to provide us a really useful foundation for that kind of discussion. So anyway, I appreciate the report and I fully support it.
Great, thanks.
That's great. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we've got receipt on the table. Anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried, and they're okay. Wow, okay. Everyone's jumping to that. So the recommendation is around the feasibility application to BC Hydro for the feasibility study, and any discussion or questions on the recommendation. Seeing none, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried, and I believe that's the last item on the agenda. So, okay, great, and we're terminated. Thank you.